May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. The Hallmark cards for Mother's Day are probably still out on the shelves with captions like, "To my mom, my inspiration," "To the best mom, for a loving mother." Nice cards, nice sentiments, nice to get from someone who loves you. But I have to say, in my experience, Mother's Day was always quite an eye-opening experience when I got homemade cards, carefully drawn by my children with teachers' prompts inside. Things like what I like best about my mom, or what my mom does best, or what I'm grateful for. It seems like a good idea. But then I got a card from my grade 2 daughter one year that said, among other things, "I am grateful that my mom picks up the dog poop in the backyard." The romantic wispiness of Mother's Day comes crashing down to earthly realities. And truthfully, a lot of parenting is about picking up poop, metaphorically and literally. When a child is born and comes into a family, both child and parent are learning what it is to be together. You come knowing things, but there's a lot you don't know, and you're faced with what you don't know in a regular torrent of issues that arise. When my son was 4 years old, he was at coffee hour one day after church, and a man came up to him and asked him how he was doing, and his response was, "I'm kind of sad. My mother is dead. She was shot by hunters." I had thought I was doing quite well showing him Disney movies, but I had no idea he would over-identify with Bambi, who was a little deer whose mother was dead, shot by hunters. Parenthood is baffling. Anyone who tells you it is not paying enough attention. It's a journey of continuous adjustments, problem solving, and wondering, what on earth do I do now? A number of years ago, I had a conversation with an 80-year-old mother. All her kids had lives that were one big mess. One was leaving his marriage and children to move in with the children's babysitter. One had quit his job at 50 and decided that he was going to spend the rest of his life in the basement smoking weed. And her daughter was self-absorbed and obsessed with money and status. Their mother said, "We never had a drop of trouble with them all through their childhood and through their teenage years. We felt so lucky. Now I have no idea what to do." Parenting is just life. Life connected to others. And all of us, whether we're parents or not, have these struggles to adjust to the shifting array of challenges that life throws at us. Because life does not stand still. We have to continuously be problem solvers and sort out the best thing we can do. A number of years ago, I met a minister named Anthony Robbins. He's from the United Methodist Church in the States, in Washington State. And he wrote a book on leadership called Leadership Without Easy Answers. He said there are 3 types of problems that we face. The first type is we know what the problem is and we know how to deal with it. Second type is we know what the problem is, but there are many possible ways to start to address it. And the third one is we don't know what the problem is, and there are many avenues we're going to have to explore to start sorting it out. Life gives us all 3 of these kinds of problems over and over again, and we spend our lifetimes learning and problem solving. The first type of problem, known answer. You just have to be shown the answer, and then you can fix it if you have the right tools. It's like the first time you get a letter from the school saying that head lice has shown up in your child's classroom and you should check your child. Then, if you find lice, follow these steps. Medicated shampoos, careful combing, laundering everything, and a long, tedious lecture about sharing hats, helmets, and combs and brushes. These kind of problems worry us the first time we encounter them, but once we figure out how to deal with them, they just become a series of steps to remedy. Do this, do that, problem solved. The second type of problem, known problem, many solutions, takes more investigative work. It's like baking a cake that constantly falls in the middle. Then you have to sort out how to fix it. It could be the wrong mix of ingredients. It could be the oven temperature. It could be an issue with how you mixed it together. Maybe you're opening the oven door too often to check. You know what the problem is, but you have to chase down a lot of possibilities in order to fix it. These are harder problems and take a little more experimentation. The coronavirus is one of these kind of problems. We know what the problem is, a virus that's easily spread and can make people sick and possibly die. But there are a lot of responses necessary to sort out how we'll address it. We have to change the way we gather, change the way we touch things, follow the contacts of those who've been infected, isolate, research vaccines and treatments, and watch how it changes over time. We know the problem, but there is not yet a known solution. So we work away at it, see what helps, learn and share. These type of problems take a lot more time and willingness to test, research, and experiment. The third type of problem is the hardest. Unknown problem, many kinds of solutions. These are the problems that have a web of complexities, like a school that has a high rate of children who are dropping out. That is only the tip of the iceberg of things that is going on. It's a symptom, but it's not the problem. It could be related to so many different things. It could be an issue of bad leadership. It could be frustrated teachers. It could be students with language challenges, cultural challenges, economic hardships, dangerous lives. It could be the curriculum, the class size, lack of safety, mold in the walls. We don't know what causes it, and we have to address it from many different angles at the same time. These are big problems where the whole system is involved. These are the kind of problems that make you long for head lice, something you know how to fix. These are the problems that are not fixed in a week. They're ongoing challenges that call us to pay attention, to adjust, to try things, to be creative, and partner with others who have ideas. In family life and in all of life, we have all three kinds of those types of challenges. We have known and unknown issues, and we have known and unknown ways of addressing them. I told one person this week that the title of this sermon should be Keep Calm and Muddle On. Because we're often in a place in our families and life where we don't know what the right thing is to do. We don't know how to fix things. We don't have the answers. Thomas says to Jesus in the Gospel of John, "Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way to get there?" What an honest and familiar plea that is. How can we know the way to get to the goodness of life that Jesus was talking about? How do we get to that room in the house of God? I love the psalm that we read this morning, Psalm 121. It starts off with the words, "I lift my eyes to the hills. Where will my help come from?" That's the question of life and faith. Where will my help come from? One of the commentaries I read about this psalm was that it was seen as a traveling blessing, that in a country where people took long journeys by foot, a lot of bad things could happen. There were robbers on desolate roads. On rocky, uneven paths, you could turn an ankle and injure yourself. In the heat of the midday sun, you could get sunstroke. They also believed that the moon had the power to mess with your mind. That's where the term lunacy comes from. Lunatic, lunar module. So when you sent someone on a long journey, you blessed them and offered words like these. God will not let your foot be moved. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. God will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. In your travels into the uncertainty and hazardousness of life, God goes with you, not sleeping, but actively with you. We are in a world of uncertainty and hazard right now, and a lot of things we normally turn to for comfort, our friends and family and community, have been kept at a necessary distance. So we need to lift our eyes to see where our support and encouragement comes from. Where is our consolation and our hope? Someone sent me a reflection this week from a monastery in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's about God's abiding love. He talks about the word abide and writes this. In John's Gospel, Jesus speaks intimately and lovingly to his friends, knowing that he will soon be separated from them. Abide in me as I abide in you, he tells them. He knows that dark days are ahead. He knows that their faith will be tested. He knows they will suffer. He tells them to abide in him. We can understand this abiding as an expression of deep commitment and intimate communion. The Greek word that is used in the original text has a sense of toughness about it. It's as if Jesus is saying, hang in there with me, and I'll hang in there with you. Stick it out with me, and I'll stick it out with you. The loving presence of God is like the writer of the psalm talks about, a relationship of safety and refuge. The love of God surrounds us and holds us steady. It enables us to face great challenges with courage and strength. Abide with me. It's about God making a home in us and us making a home in God. I asked Bryn to play Abide With Me as a hymn for the service today. It's been used for generations as a hymn at funerals and too often has probably been sung as a real dirge. But it is a hymn of strength in the midst of problems that seem overwhelming, problems where we feel alone. When darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, God, abide with me. We want God's abiding love for our own rest and revival, so that we can offer our abiding love for others. Keep it flowing. We abide in God's love, and we abide with one another. I heard a great story this week from someone in the congregation, and I asked her if I could share it with you. She was sorting out how to live in these new, smaller guidelines that surround our lives for our common health and safety, but still wanting to be in loving relationships with others. She's a 90-year-old woman who has a regular picnic date with her son. He picks up burgers at the White Spot. They both take their cars and drive them to the beach, and they park side by side in the parking lot at the beach. They roll down the windows, share burgers, visit, and have a picnic. That's such a classic Vancouver thing to do. White spot burgers at the beach and problem solving about how we continue to be loving people in new ways. Abide with me. I have one final story about another hymn that we're going to sing. It's an old story, almost 400 years old, and recently it's taken on quite a profound meaning. The story is of a man named Martin Rinkart. He was a Lutheran pastor in Eilenburg, Germany in the early 1600s. It was during the time of the 30-Year War, one of the most destructive wars in human history. It cost Europe more than 8 million lives due to violence, but more, hunger, and then the plague. Rinkart was the only minister left in his city in 1636. He officiated at all the funerals, 4,000 of them in that year. Sometimes he did up to 40 funerals a day, including the funeral for his own wife. While this was his work, Martin also looked after his children, offered regular Sunday services, and wrote hymns. In 1636, in that terrible year of losses, he wrote a 3-verse hymn that began with these words: "Now thank we all our God with hearts and hands and voices, who wondrous things hath done, in whom this world rejoices, who from our mother's arms has blessed us on our way with countless gifts of love, and still is ours today." It will be our next hymn in this morning's service, a song of strength and faith that was written in a world of deep trouble and loss and problems that confounded people. In the middle of that, in their unknowing and muddling and working things through, they spoke and sang of God, whose timeless presence and abiding love were still with them and leading them. May we still share the confidence of that same faith, lifting our eyes to God, who never lets us go. Thanks be to God. Amen.